Alright, now we're going to continue doing some long division, and in this particular example we're going to see why it's important that we actually have descending order. Because what you'll notice here, on the last problem I said we had, it went 2, 1, none. This time we have 3, and then 1, and then 0. In other words, my exponents go 3, 1, 0. And we're missing a x squared here. And it's important that we actually have descending order, so it goes 3, 2, 1. So we have to actually add in our x squared, and we do that by adding a 0x squared, because if you add a 0x squared, it's just adding a 0, and you can always add a 0. So now let's go ahead and rewrite our problem. The x minus 5 should go on the 3, sorry, should go on the outside, and we have 3x to the third, and then we're going to add in our plus 0x squared. Again, that's the new thing I'm adding in, and then minus 2x plus 5. So now we go ahead and start doing our long division just like we did on the last example. And we do that looking at our 3x to the third and our x. So I ask myself, what do I multiply x by to get 3x to the third? And the answer is 3x squared. So now I take my 3x squared and I will distribute it to the x and to the negative 3. When I multiply it by the x, it gives me 3x to the third. When I multiply it by the negative 3, it should give me negative 9x squared. And now you can see why it's important that after I change the signs here, that I had a placeholder right here at the 0x squared, because now I actually will add that instead of adding it with the 2x. So these 3x to the thirds cancel, and then a 0 plus a 9 is just 9x squared. And then I go ahead and bring down my negative 2x. So now I ask myself, what multiplies by x to get 9x squared? And the answer is plus 9x. And so now I distribute my 9x times my x and to my negative 3. When I multiply 9x by x, I should get 9x squared. When I multiply the 9x times the negative 3, I should get negative 27x. And then I change my signs, negative, positive here. And then those 9x squareds cancel, and I have positive 27, negative 2, which should give me positive 25x. And then I bring down my 5. Okay? And I ask myself for the last time, what do you multiply the x by to get this 25x? And the answer is 25. So I multiply my 25 by my x, and that should give me 25x. And then I multiply the 25 times the negative 3, which should give me negative 75. And then I change my signs, and I get negative, positive here. And those cancel, and I should get 5 plus 75, which is 80. Now 80 is your remainder. Okay. Now in the lab, I believe they actually give you an option of putting in an R80, or a remainder of whatever it is. And if not, the other way to write it is you would say plus 80 divided by what you were dividing into, which was the x minus 3. Okay, so you put your remainder over top of whatever you were dividing by out in front. Okay, and this is your answer, this 3x squared plus 9x plus 25 plus the 80 divided by x minus 3. Now in this next example, we also have a missing term, but if you're looking at what we're dividing into, we've got the r to the fourth, third, 2, 1, and none. Well, that's descending order. That's not a problem. The issue comes over here with what we're dividing by. I've got r squared, and then there's nothing in the middle, and then no r. So that's actually an issue. I have to add in a 0, r to the first power, to make it actually work. Okay. So let's rewrite the problem. I've got 3r squared minus 2 on the outside, but I can't work with that, so I actually have to write 3r squared plus 0r plus my 2, or sorry, minus my 2. And then on the inside is my 6r to the fourth plus 9r to the third plus 2r squared minus 8r plus 7. Okay, so now I've set the problem up correctly so that I can actually do the long division. And just even though that there's three things on the outside, I'm still only worried about the first number here, the 3r squared, and the 6r to the fourth. And the question is, what do you multiply 3r squared by to get 6r to the fourth? And the answer is 2r squared. And if I multiply this, if I have this 2r squared up here, I actually will distribute it now to the 3r squared, to the 0r, and to the negative 2. So I actually have three things to distribute that number on top to now instead of 2 like the previous problems. So now I do the actual multiplication. 2r squared times 3r squared should give me 6r to the fourth. And then I have 2r squared times 0r, which should give me 0r to the third. It actually doesn't matter what the answer is there, it's just a 0. And then 2r squared minus 2 should give me negative 4r squared. And then I change my signs and do the subtraction. So this is going to turn a negative. It doesn't matter what 0 is. Negative, you can make it. And then positive. And so my 6r to the fourths cancel. And then 9 plus 0 is just 9r to the third. And then 2r squared plus 4r squared should give me 6r squared. And then you should bring down your negative 8r. Okay. So now I look at the 9r to the third and the 3r to the second, and I multiply the 3r to the second by a 3, a positive 3, and I need another r to make 9r to the third. So now I go ahead and distribute the 3r to the three numbers out in front, just like I was doing before, and that will give me 3r times 3r to the third, which should give me 9r to the third. And then 3r times the 0 should give me plus 0r to the second. And then 3r times the negative 2 should give me negative 6r. And then I go ahead and subtract. So I change my signs. So this will turn into negative, negative 0, whatever, and then plus. Okay? So then you'll see that the 9r to the thirds cancel. The 6r squared just comes on down. And then negative 8r and positive 6 turns into negative 2r. And then you finish by bringing down to your 7. And then I again look at the first number, the 6r to the second, and the 3r squared out in front. And what do I multiply by to get, multiply 3r squared by to get 6r squared, and the answer is 2. And so I take my 2 and distribute it to all the three numbers out in front again. So I distribute to the 3, the 0, and to the negative 2, and that should give me 6r squared. It's going to give me 0r, and then 2 times negative 2 should give me negative 4. So I will have a remainder this time, again. So I subtract, turns into negative, positive, the 6r's cancel, it turns into negative 2r, and then plus 11. So negative 2r plus 11 is my remainder. So you would say r equals, or up on top you would say plus, I don't really have much room there, negative 2r plus 11 over my 3r squared minus 2. Now in the remainder I didn't put the actual little 0r down in here. It's because it's not important. I didn't actually write it there. But I think in the lab it actually just asks you what's your remainder. But either way, you could put it like that. And if it was, it shouldn't mark you wrong if you put the 0r in there, but you could. And if it does mark you wrong, just let me know. It shouldn't be an issue though. You'll get some problems in your homework that asks you if something like x plus 4 is a factor of this. What they're asking you to do, what you're being asked to do, is really do the long division, and the question is do you have a remainder? Yes or no. Okay? So, if you have a remainder, if the answer is yes, you have a remainder, then it is not a factor. If there is no remainder, then the answer is that it does go in evenly, so it is a factor. So you actually have to do the long division, the x plus 4 whether or not it goes into x to the third plus 3x squared minus 6x minus 7. So you got to do the whole work just to find out whether or not there is a remainder. Okay? So let's do that. X turns into x to the third if you multiply it by an x squared. So I distribute that to the x. It gives me x to the third. Then times the 4 gives me plus x, 4x squared. And then I go ahead and change the signs. And those cancel. This turns into a negative x squared. Bring down my negative 6x. And then I multiply by a negative x to get negative x squared. So that gives me negative x squared. Negative x times 4 gives me negative 4x. And then you change your signs. Positive, positive. X squareds cancel. The negative 6x plus 4x gives me negative 2x. Then I bring down my negative 7. And then I multiply by negative 2. And that gives me negative 2x minus 8. And you can see that after I do the subtraction, I'll have a remainder of 1. Now again, because there's a remainder of 1, it means this is not a factor. The only way to have a factor is if there is no remainder. Okay, because that means it goes in evenly. So this has a remainder of 1. If you have a remainder, it's not a factor. If there is no remainder, then it is a factor. So that's all you're actually checking for. So it means do the long division. Do you have a remainder or not?